Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep into the Fear Street trilogy on Netflix today.
Okay.
And, you might be thinking horror, really, but stick with us because these films are,
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
they're way more than just your typical scary movies.
Right, it's got some depth to them.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking generational trauma,
Oh, yeah.
social injustice, and like the whole idea of power corrupting people.
It's all in there.
Plus, the way they connect all three movies is just
It's really clever how they do that.
it's so smart. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's set the scene for anyone who hasn't seen them.
Good idea.
So basically, you've got this town, Shadyside, right?
It's really sad. Huh.
And it's got this long, dark history of brutal murders.
Centuries of them.
And everyone thinks it's because of this witch, Sarah Fire.
Yeah, she was executed back in 1666.
But of course, there's a lot more to it than that.
Way more.
And that's what makes these movies so gripping.
Totally. I mean, on the surface, you've got your classic slasher, stuff mask killers, creepy settings,
Yeah, you get your jump scares.
for sure.
But then, underneath all that, there's this deeper commentary going on.
About society, about history, about how we treat each other.
Exactly. And the way they tell the story by jumping between different time periods is genius.
Oh, yeah, 1994, 1978, and then all the way back to 1666.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
It keeps you guessing the whole time.
Totally. Each time period also pays homage to a different era of horror movies, which I think is a really cool touch.
It is. It's like a love letter to the genre.
For sure. Like you start with 1994 and it has this Scream vibe.
Very self-aware, very meta.
And the soundtrack is pure 90s goodness.
Oh, the music is amazing. It totally takes you back.
But it's not just there for the nostalgia factor. The music actually emphasizes how history keeps repeating itself.
It shows how these kids are facing the same horrors that generations before them had to deal with.
It's chilling when you think about it that way.
Yeah, it really gets under your skin.
Then you've got 1978, which is pure summer camp slasher fun.
Think Friday the 13th.
But it goes deeper than that.
It explores these really intense female friendships.
Oh, yeah, and the trauma of surviving something so horrific.
And that setting, Camp Nightwing. Ugh, so creepy.
They nailed the whole summer camp horror aesthetic.
Absolutely. And then boom, you're in 1666 with this completely different vibe.
Total shift in tone.
Way more atmospheric, more like a folk horror film.
Yeah, like The Witch.
Yeah, very unsettling, very eerie.
It's amazing how they create three distinct films that still fit together perfectly.
They nailed it.
But for me, the real hook was how they turned the whole Sarah Fire thing on its head.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
At first, you think she's this evil witch, right?
A classic horror movie villain.
Exactly. But then, bam, Part 3 takes us back to 1666.
And you see her as this young woman who's been wrongly accused.
It completely changes how you see the whole story.
It makes you question everything you thought you knew.
And it really makes you think about how we label people, especially when we're afraid.
It shows how easy it is to demonize someone who's different.
Especially when superstition is involved.
Oh yeah, and they do such a good job visually of making you sympathize with Sarah. Like the colors in 1666 are so much more muted.
You really feel the harshness of that time period.
And the way they light the scenes, it's all shadows and darkness.
You can practically feel the fear and paranoia.
And the camera just focuses on Sarah's face. You see her fear, her vulnerability.
It humanizes her in a way we don't see in those typical witch stories.
Definitely. But hold on, because things are about to get even crazier.
Buckle up, because here comes the real mind blower.
This is where it gets good.
So it turns out the real source of Shadyside's misery isn't supernatural at all.
Yeah, it's not some curse.
It's the good family. These super wealthy, influential people from Sunnyvale, the town next door. And get this, they made a deal with the devil.
Oh, come on.
I know, right? It adds this whole other layer to the story.
It's not just about a witch anymore.
It's about power and corruption.
It's about how people in positions of privilege can exploit others.
Exactly. And it's so relevant to what we see in the real world.
Totally. It's like they're holding up a mirror to society.
And this is where the whole idea of breaking the cycle comes in.
Oh, yeah. That's a big theme.
So the teenagers in 1994, they learn about the past and they decide to fight back.
They're not just going to sit around and let history repeat itself.
Nope. They realize that ending the curse means taking on the good family.
They got to challenge the system.
It's such a powerful message.
It really is.
It's saying that we all have a responsibility to stand up against injustice.
To fight for what's right.
Exactly. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of each film, let's take a minute to appreciate some of the amazing characters.
Okay, who are we highlighting?
Well, you've got Dina, our main girl in 1994. She's tough, she's smart, and she refuses to be a victim.
I like it.
And then there's Ziggy, the survivor from 1978. She's a total badass, but she's also got this vulnerability to her.
She's complex.
I like that. And of course, we can't forget Sarah Fire. Seeing her story unfold in 1666 makes her so much more than just a villain.
It makes you think about how history remembers people.
And how easily we can misjudge someone based on what we've been told.
Yeah, there's always more to the story.
Always. So that's the setup for our deep dive into the Fear Street trilogy. We're about to journey back to 1994, the year it all begins.
Get ready for skull masks, 90s tunes, and a whole lot of suspense.
You won't want to miss it.
Okay, so 1994. Right.
Back to Shadyside, where the horror is just beginning.
And they waste no time setting the mood.
Seriously, that opening scene...
Talk about a grabber.
It's like they took that classic Scream formula and gave it their own twist.
You know, the girl working at the bookstore? Totally oblivious.
Heather.
Yeah, Heather. And then, bam,
Yeah.
skull mask appears.
Chills, literal chills.
But it's not just the jump scare. It's the way it's all put together.
The slow build, the music, the way they use the shadows.
You just know something terrible is about to happen.
And that feeling, that dread, it just stays with you throughout the whole film.
It's like you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop.
And then you have those quick flashbacks to past murders.
Little glimpses into Shadyside's bloody history.
It's like, yeah, this isn't just a one-time thing. This town is cursed.
A cycle of violence that never ends.
But Dina and her friends, they're not buying it.
They're not just going to sit back and accept their fate.
They want answers, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to find them.
So they go to the source, right?
C. Berman, the sole survivor of the Camp Nightwing massacre.
The woman who's seen it all.
And man, she is a fascinating character.
Oh yeah, she embodies that whole idea of trauma and resilience we were talking about.
She's a recluse, living with the weight of what she experienced.
But she also holds the key to understanding the curse.
And that connection to 1978, it's brilliant.
It's not just some random plot device. It ties everything together.
And then boom, we're transported back to Camp Nightwing.
Talk about a time warp.
It's like stepping right into a 70s summer camp movie.
The clothes, the music, the hair.
Everything screams 1978.
But beneath that surface, there's this unsettling feeling.
Yeah, you can sense that something bad is about to go down.
The calm before the storm.
And then we meet Ziggy.
Ziggy Berman.
What a character.
She's a firecracker.
She doesn't care what anyone thinks. She's just going to be herself.
Which, of course, makes her a target.
Yeah, she doesn't exactly fit in with the preppy camp crowd.
But under that tough exterior, she's hurting.
Yeah, she's carrying some baggage.
And her relationship with your sister, Cindy? Oh, boy.
Complicated, to say the least.
Constantly at each other's throats.
But you can tell they love each other deep down.
It's that classic sibling rivalry, amplified by the whole crazy situation.
And as the murders start happening at Camp Nightwing, their relationship really gets tested.
It's like the curse is preying on their tension,
making everything worse,
forcing them to confront their issues head on.
But even in the midst of all the horror, there's this little spark of romance.
Oh yeah, Ziggy and Nick.
The counselor, Nick Good.
Uh-oh. A good?
You know it. Talk about a game changer.
It completely throws you off.
Like, wait, the Goods are connected to this? How deep does this go?
And their connection feels real, you know?
It's like a breath of fresh air amidst all the darkness.
But knowing what we know now, it's just chilling.
And then that ending of part 2, oh my God.
When Ziggy dies.
But then Cindy brings her back.
I know, right? What is going on?
It's such an emotional roller coaster.
You're heartbroken one minute, then shocked the next.
And then the film just ends, leaving you with a million questions.
Talk about a cliffhanger.
How was she alive? What does this mean for the curse? And what about Nick?
What's his role in all of this?
It's so masterfully done, keeping you on the edge of your seat.
And then they throw in that last little connection to 1994.
The detail that changes everything.
Like, whoa, the past and present are more intertwined than we thought.
And to understand it all, we have to go even further back.
To the very beginning.
1666, here we come. So 1666, right? A whole new world.
It really is. Such a different feel from the other two films.
It's like stepping back in time. You can practically feel the weight of history.
That sense of isolation, too. The settlement feels so small, so vulnerable.
And surrounded by this vast wilderness. It's both beautiful and terrifying.
You really get a sense of how harsh life was back then. The constant fear of the unknown.
And then there's Sarah Fire.
played by the same actress as Dina, which is such a clever touch.
It really blurs those lines between past and present.
Makes you wonder about those connections. Right?
Yeah, what's going on there? But in 1666, we see Sarah as a real person. Not a monster, not a witch, just a young woman.
With her own hopes and dreams, you see her playful side, her rebellious spirit.
And her love for Hannah.
That's where it all starts to unravel.
Their relationship is so taboo in this community.
You can see how uncomfortable it makes people.
And the consequences are just brutal.
That trial scene is so hard to watch.
The way they humiliate her, accuse her of witchcraft.
It's pure fear and superstition driving them.
Mob mentality at its worst.
And the way the camera lingers on the townspeople's faces, it's chilling.
You can see the hatred, the self-righteousness.
They truly believe they're doing the right thing.
It's a powerful reminder of how easily people can be swayed by fear.
And how those in power can manipulate that fear for their own gain.
Which brings us to the biggest twist of all. Sarah didn't actually curse Shadyside.
She made a deal with the devil, yes. But it was out of love for Hannah. To protect her.
And it was the Good family who took advantage of that deal.
They twisted it, corrupted it for their own selfish purposes.
They condemned generations of Shadysiders to suffer.
To ensure their own wealth and power.
That revelation reframes the entire trilogy.
It's not just about a witch's curse anymore.
It's about the evil that humans are capable of.
The greed, the corruption, the willingness to sacrifice others for their own benefit.
And that's what Dina and her friends realized in 1994.
They see the truth of Shadyside's history.
And they know that to break the cycle, they have to fight back against the real enemy.
The Good family. The system that allows them to thrive.
And they do. They expose the goods, they challenge the power structure.
It's such a satisfying moment.
It's about reclaiming their history, fighting for justice.
And showing that even in the face of overwhelming odds, we can make a difference.
So what does all of this mean for us?
I think it's a call to action.
To look around at our own communities, at the systems that perpetuate injustice.
To ask ourselves, what can we do to change things?
Even small acts of resistance can have a ripple effect.
It's about recognizing those patterns, breaking the cycle.
The Fear Street trilogy is more than just a horror story.
It's a reflection of our own world.
And a reminder that we have the power to create a better future.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We hope it's left you with something to think about.
And maybe even inspired you to take action.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep fighting the good fight.